Imagine standing at the base of a mountain. You look up, and the peak feels impossibly far away. You think to yourself, how am I ever going to reach the top? But what if I told you that you don't have to climb it all at once? What if instead all you had to do was take one step, just one step, every single day? That's the power of getting just 1% better every day. It sounds small, almost insignificant, but over time the results are extraordinary. If you improve by 1% each day, by the end of the year, you won't be 365% better. You'll be 37 times better than when you started. That's not wishful thinking, it's math. So how do we apply this in real life? Here are 6 principles that can help you harness this power. We often find ourselves chasing big, grand victories, those monumental, life-changing moments that redefine everything in an instant. But the truth is, the most remarkable transformations don't happen overnight. They don't come from sweeping gestures or once-in-a-lifetime breakthroughs. Real success is built piece by piece through the power of small, deliberate wins. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain, staring up at its towering peak. The journey to the top feels impossible. The distance is too great, the climb too steep. But if you take one step, just one height, suddenly becomes more manageable. One step turns into another, and then another. With each stride, you inch closer to the summit. The secret to achieving great things isn't in the intensity of the effort. It's in the consistency of movement. Sir Dave Brailsford, the coach of the British cycling team, understood this better than most. When he took over, Britain's cycling history was uninspiring at best. For over 100 years, the team had failed to make a mark in the Tour de France. They were seen as underdogs, an afterthought in the world of competitive cycling. But Brailsford wasn't interested in overnight miracles. He believed in the power of marginal gain, small, seemingly insignificant improvements that, when compounded, lead to extraordinary results. He started by making 1% changes in every area imaginable. He optimized their bikes for maximum efficiency. He redesigned the seats to be more comfortable. He paid attention to sleep patterns, nutrition, even the way the riders washed their hands to prevent illness. No change was too small to consider. The result? Within 5 years, British cyclists were dominating the sport, winning 5 Tour de France titles and multiple Olympic gold medals. Not because of one dramatic shift, but because of countless tiny improvements stacked on top of each other. This philosophy extends far beyond the world of cycling. It's relevant to every aspect of our lives. When we set out to accomplish something, whether it's building a business, improving our health, or strengthening our relationships, we often look for that one big move, that single defining moment that will change everything. But change doesn't work like that. Change happens in the smallest of moments. It's the extra push-up you do after you feel like stopping. It's the single thoughtful email you send to a client. It's choosing to listen instead of react in a difficult conversation. These moments seem insignificant in isolation, but over time, they define who we become. What holds most people back isn't the lack of ability or talent, it's the belief that small actions don't matter. We live in a world obsessed with instant gratification. If we don't see immediate results, we assume our efforts are wasted. But success is rarely visible in the short term. It's like planting a seed and expecting a tree to appear overnight. Growth takes time, and the most important progress often happens beneath the surface before we ever see the results. Consider the story of James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. He suffered a devastating injury in high school that left him struggling to regain his ability to focus and perform academically. Instead of looking for a quick fix, he committed to small improvements, studying just a little more each day, going to bed a little earlier, working out a little harder. These tiny habits, repeated consistently, eventually transformed his life. He went from being a struggling student to excelling in college, becoming an expert on behavioral psychology, and ultimately writing a best-selling book that has changed millions of lives. What makes small wins so powerful isn't just the accumulation of progress, it's the shift in identity that comes with them. Every time you make a small improvement, you reinforce the belief that you are the kind of person who shows up, who puts in the effort, who keeps moving forward. These small wins shape how we see ourselves. They build confidence. They create momentum. And momentum is what carries us through the inevitable setbacks and challenges that come our way. The beauty of this approach is that it works in any area of life. If you want to be healthier, don't start by overhauling your entire diet and committing to an unrealistic workout routine. Start by drinking 1 extra glass of water each day. Walk 5 more minutes. If you want to write a book, Don't wait for inspiration to strike. Just commit to writing one sentence each morning. If you want to strengthen your relationships, don't wait for the perfect moment to reconnect. Send a simple text message today. These actions may seem small, but they are the building blocks of something far greater. We often admire those who achieve great things, the Olympic athletes, the successful entrepreneurs, the thought leaders who seem to have it all figured out. But what we don't see is the journey behind the success. We don't see the countless small wins, the years of tiny, consistent actions that led them to where they are. Every great achievement is simply the sum of small efforts repeated daily. So the question isn't, what massive change do I need to make? The real question is, what small action can I take today that moves me in the right direction? Because the difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent or luck, it's the commitment to doing the little things day in and day out until they add up to something extraordinary. Most people approach change the same way they approach a to-do list. They create goals, set timelines, and try to force themselves into new habits with sheer willpower. But willpower is fragile. It's a limited resource that fades under stress, under pressure, under the weight of old routines. That's why so many resolutions fail, why so many promises to ourselves are broken. Because the problem isn't in the actions we take, it's in the way we see ourselves. Think about the last time you tried to make a significant change. Maybe you wanted to eat healthier. Maybe you wanted to wake up earlier. Maybe you wanted to be more patient, more disciplined, more present. Whatever it was, you probably set a goal, maybe even wrote it down. You started strong, but eventually life got in the way. The old habits crept back in, and soon you found yourself right where you started, wondering why change always seems just out of reach. The answer is simple but profound. You didn't shift your identity. You treated change like something external, a task to complete, rather than a part of who you are. And until you shift your identity, true change is impossible. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. One says, "I'm trying to quit." The other says, "I'm not a smoker." The difference may seem small, but it's everything. The first person still identifies as a smoker. They are simply a smoker who is trying to stop. The second person, however, has already mentally moved on. They are not a smoker. Every time they are tempted, they don't see it as a struggle against a craving. They see it as a contradiction to who they are. And the mind will always work to stay consistent with the identity we believe to be true. We see this in every aspect of life. A person who says, "I should start running," might struggle to stay consistent. But a person who sees themselves as a runner, they get up early. They lace up their shoes. They run even when they don't feel like it, not because they're forcing themselves, but because it's simply what runners do. Their identity drives their behavior. This shift isn't just powerful, it's necessary. Because the truth is, we are all becoming something. Every choice we make reinforces a version of ourselves. When you hit snooze 5 times, you're not just sleeping in, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who struggles to wake up early. When you skip the gym, you're not just missing a workout, you're reinforcing the belief that fitness isn't really a priority for you. Every action, every decision, every behavior is a vote for the person you are becoming. So the real question is, who do you want to be? Not what do you want to do, who do you want to be? Because once you decide that, the actions follow naturally. If you want to be someone who is healthy, then eating nutritious food isn't a punishment, it's just part of who you are. If you want to be a writer, then writing isn't a chore, it's something you simply do because writers write. If you want to be a great leader, then communication, empathy, and integrity aren't checkboxes to mark off. They are qualities you embody because that is who you are. The mistake so many of us make is focusing on outcomes instead of identity. We say, "I want to lose 20 pounds," instead of "I am a person who prioritizes health." We say, "I want to save money," instead of "I am a person who makes wise financial choices." And that's why we struggle. Because when we reach that goal, when we lose the weight or save the money, there's no deeper identity to sustain it. We fall back into old patterns because we never truly saw ourselves differently. We were just visitors in a new reality, not permanent residents. The most successful people, whether in business, in sports, in life, don't just work towards something, they become something. Michael Jordan didn't just practice basketball. He saw himself as the greatest, and every action followed from that identity. Elon Musk doesn't just build companies, he sees himself as a visionary, a problem solver, an innovator. That's why he doesn't stop. It's not a habit, it's who he is. And the best part? You don't have to wait for anyone's permission to shift your identity. You don't have to achieve something first. You don't have to prove it to anyone. You simply decide, right now, in this moment, you choose the person you want to be. And from that choice, Every action will align, every habit will reinforce, every challenge will become just another step in the journey. Change isn't about willpower, it's not about discipline, it's about identity. When you become the person you want to be, the habits follow, the choices become easy, and the transformation, it's inevitable. Imagine dropping a single drop of water on a stone. Nothing happens. Drop after drop, day after day, the stone looks unchanged. But eventually the water carves a groove into the rock. A simple, unremarkable action, repeated over time, creates something remarkable. This is the compound effect of the most powerful yet often overlooked principles of success. We live in a world obsessed with instant gratification. We want results now. We celebrate overnight successes, viral sensations, and rapid transformations. But the truth is, real success, the kind that lasts, is not built overnight. It is not a singular event, a stroke of luck, or a moment of genius. It is built through the relentless commitment to small, seemingly insignificant actions compounded over time. Warren Buffett didn't become one of the richest men in the world through a single brilliant decision. It was decades of disciplined investing, consistently making small, smart choices every single day. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It was patience, consistency, and the willingness to play the long game. But here's the challenge. The compound effect works both ways. Just as positive habits accumulate into greatness, negative habits accumulate into failure. A small indulgence here, a missed commitment there, it all seems harmless in the moment. But add it up over time, and the results can be catastrophic. Consider health. One day of eating fast food won't make you unhealthy. One missed workout won't make you unfit. But one choice leads to another. The body doesn't transform in a day, but in the silent accumulation of choices. Eat unhealthy for a decade, and the results are inevitable. But the same is true in reverse. Choose to exercise daily, even when it's inconvenient, even when there's no visible progress, and over time, transformation is inevitable. The compound effect is the reason why some people rise to greatness while others remain stuck. It is why some leaders inspire while others struggle to gain traction. It is why the best in any field, business, sports, music, seem to be light years ahead of the rest. It is not that they possess superhuman talent. It is that they mastered the art of consistency. They understood that small things done repeatedly shape the future, yet in the beginning, the results are invisible. This is why most people give up. They expect immediate results, they go to the gym for a week, see no difference, and quit. They start a business, struggle through the first few months, and assume they're failing. They write a book, hit writer's block, and assume they aren't good enough. But the truth is, progress has happened, it's just not yet visible. A bamboo tree spends years growing underground before it breaks through the surface. For years, it looks as if nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, its roots are expanding, strengthening, preparing. Then, seemingly overnight, it shoots up, growing feet in mere weeks. Success works the same way. The early stages feel like struggle, like effort with no reward. But those who persist, those who trust the process, will eventually break through. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in a decade and overestimate what they can achieve in a year. They set massive, unrealistic goals, expecting instant success. And when they don't see immediate results, they give up. But the secret is not in radical, unsustainable action. The secret is in the daily disciplines, the habits, the commitment to showing up, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching, even when it feels pointless. Consider relationships. A marriage doesn't fall apart in a day. It falls apart in the tiny moments when communication is neglected, when appreciation fades, when small acts of kindness are forgotten. But love, trust, and deep connection are also built in small moments. Choosing to listen, choosing to show gratitude, choosing to put in effort. The most extraordinary relationships aren't built through grand gestures. They are built through small, consistent acts of love. This is why discipline is more important than motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. It is easy to feel inspired in the moment. But what happens when that feeling fades? Discipline is what keeps you going. Discipline is showing up when you don't feel like it. Discipline is understanding that success is not about doing extraordinary things. It's about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well every single day. There will always be distractions. There will always be reasons to quit. There will always be voices telling you that you're not good enough, that you're not making progress, that you should stop. But remember this, the greatest achievements in history were not built in a moment. They were built through persistence, through dedication, through the relentless pursuit of something greater. The question is not whether the compound effect is working in your life, it is. The question is, in which direction? Are your daily choices moving you closer to your goals or further away? Are you building habits that will serve you or habits that will cost you? Every small choice matters. Every decision compounds. The future is not shaped by one defining moment, but by the millions of tiny moments leading up to it. Success is not about taking giant leaps, it is about taking consistent steps in the right direction. So, keep going. Even when you don't see results, even when it feels like nothing is changing, because one day you will look back and everything will be different. One day you will realize that every drop of water, every effort, every small choice mattered. And that is the moment you will understand the true power of the compound effect. Growth is never born from comfort. The greatest achievements, the most remarkable transformations, and the most inspiring stories don't come from people who stayed where they were safe. They come from those who dared to push beyond what was easy. Those who embraced discomfort, not as something to be avoided, but as a sign that they were on the right path. Think about it. Every significant moment of progress in human history came from someone stepping into discomfort. The Wright brothers didn't invent flight by playing it safe. They took risks, they failed, they crashed, and they kept going. Steve Jobs didn't revolutionize the way we communicate by following the status quo. He disrupted, he challenged, and he leaned into the unknown. Every breakthrough is born in the space where comfort ends and courage begins. It's easy to talk about pushing past limits, but let's be honest, discomfort is uncomfortable. It's the moment in a run where your legs burn and your lungs beg you to stop. It's the feeling of your hands shaking before a big presentation. It's the voice in your head that says, "What if I fail?" That feeling is a gift. It means you're on the edge of growth. Michael Phelps, one of the greatest Olympians of all time, understood this deeply. He didn't just train for the easy conditions, he prepared for adversity. He swam in a pitch-black pool, forcing his body to navigate the water without sight. He trained himself to stay calm when everything in his environment screamed panic. And in the Olympic finals, when his goggles filled with water, he didn't freeze. He didn't flail. He executed because he had already lived this moment in the discomfort of his training, and he won gold. But it's not just elite athletes or visionary leaders who benefit from this mindset. It's all of us. Because discomfort is universal, it shows up in different ways in relationships, in careers, in personal goals. It whispers doubts when we try something new, nudges us to retreat to the familiar. But if we resist that pull and instead step forward, we grow, we become stronger, more capable, more resilient. The problem is that we've been conditioned to seek comfort. Our world is designed to make things easier. We have apps that deliver food so we don't have to cook, algorithms that spoon-feed us information so we don't have to search. Convenience is wonderful, but it can also be a trap. Because when everything is easy, we stop growing. We become stagnant, and stagnation is the opposite of progress. Imagine a world-class musician who only ever plays the same piece, the same way, every single day. No variation, no challenge, just repetition. Would they ever get better? Improvement comes from stepping into the unfamiliar, from stretching beyond what feels manageable. Growth is the reward of those willing to endure the discomfort of being a beginner over and over again. There's a reason great leaders, great athletes, and great innovators thrive. They have learned to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. They don't shy away from uncertainty. They seek it. They understand that discomfort is not a roadblock, it's the road itself. And so the question isn't whether discomfort will show up in your life. It will. The question is, how will you respond? Will you retreat to safety, to what's familiar, to what feels good in the moment? Or will you lean in, knowing that the struggle today is shaping you into something greater tomorrow? It's not about massive leaps. It's about small, consistent steps beyond what feels easy. If you lift the same weights every day, you don't get stronger. But if you push just a little harder, just 1% more, you create progress. That's all it takes. 1% more effort, 1% more courage, 1% more resilience. Over time, that tiny edge compounds into transformation. It's about making discomfort a daily practice, having the difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, taking on the challenge at work that stretches you, showing up even when fear tells you to sit back, choosing the path of growth instead of the path of ease. Because in the end, growth isn't something we stumble upon, it's something we fight for. It's something we earn, and it's always found on the other side of discomfort. Perfection is the enemy of progress. It is an illusion that leads to frustration, disappointment, and ultimately inaction. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with images of perfection, flawless success stories, meticulously curated social media feeds, and the illusion that everyone else has it all figured out. But the truth is, no one does. Those who succeed aren't the ones chasing perfection. They're the ones measuring progress, no matter how small. Progress, however incremental, is what keeps us moving. A Harvard study found that when people track their progress, even in the most minor ways, they are significantly more likely to stick with their goal. This principle is why fitness apps, habit trackers, and daily journals are so effective. They don't make us perfect, but they remind us that we're improving. And improvement, no matter how gradual, fuels motivation. Take Jerry Seinfeld, one of the greatest comedians of all time. His secret to success wasn't some grand epiphany or a perfect joke height, was consistency. He had a simple rule. Every day he wrote a joke, he put an X on the calendar. His goal wasn't to write the perfect joke, it was to not break the chain. That's it. He understood that progress, not perfection, leads to greatness. Over time, those small, consistent efforts compounded into a career that redefined comedy. Yet, so many of us hesitate to start something new because we fear not being good enough. We tell ourselves, I'll start that business when I'm fully ready, or I'll write that book when I know exactly what to say. But the irony is that readiness never comes. Clarity comes from action. Mastery comes from repetition. No musician ever picked up an instrument and played a flawless symphony on the first try. No entrepreneur launched a perfect business without making mistakes. No athlete reached the pinnacle of their sport without facing setbacks. They became great not because they avoided imperfection, but because they embraced the process of getting better. Too often, we let our fear of imperfection stop us. We compare our beginnings to someone else's middle or their highlight reel. But every expert was once a beginner. Every masterpiece started as a rough sketch. Every great idea was, at some point, just a scribble on a napkin. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent, it's perseverance. It's the willingness to take that first step, even when it's messy, even when it's uncomfortable. Imagine a child learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they get up, they don't quit because they aren't perfect at it. They don't overanalyze every step. They just keep going. Somewhere along the way, as we grow up, we lose that resilience. We become afraid of failure, of looking foolish, of not meeting impossible standards. But what if we reclaimed that childlike determination? What if we measured progress instead of perfection? What if we celebrated effort instead of just results? There is power in showing up, in simply deciding that today you will take one small step forward. Because small steps repeated over time lead to massive change. If you improve by just 1% every day, in a year, you won't just be 365% better, you'll be 37 times better. That's the power of compounding effort. That's the power of progress. Think about the greatest innovations in history. The light bulb wasn't invented in a single stroke of genius, it took thousands of failed attempts. The airplane wasn't perfected overnight, it required years of trial and error. Space exploration, medical breakthroughs, technological advancements, none of these happened in pursuit of perfection. They happened because people kept going, even when things weren't perfect, even when they failed, even when they doubted themselves. The key is to redefine success. Success isn't about reaching some unattainable level of flawlessness. It's about moving forward, learning, and growing. It's about looking back a week, a month, a year from now and seeing that you are further along than you were before. It's about resilience. It's about grit. It's about waking up every day and saying, I may not be where I want to be yet, but I'm closer than I was yesterday. This shift in mindset changes everything. When you stop aiming for perfection and start measuring progress, you relieve yourself of the pressure that keeps so many people stuck. You allow yourself the freedom to experiment, to try, to fail, and to improve. You turn fear into curiosity. You turn obstacles into opportunities. You stop waiting for the perfect time and start making the most of the time you have right now. And this applies to every aspect of life. In business, leaders who prioritize progress over perfection foster innovation. They create environments where employees feel safe to take risks, to experiment, to grow. In relationships, Those who focus on continuous improvement rather than unattainable ideals build deeper, more authentic connection. In personal development, those who embrace progress become lifelong learners, constantly evolving and adapting. So the question isn't whether you'll be perfect. The question is whether you'll keep going even when you're not. The question is whether you'll track your efforts, no matter how small, and recognize that every step forward is a step worth celebrating. The question is whether you will choose progress over stagnation, action over hesitation, growth over comfort, because the truth is, perfection will always be out of reach. But progress is always within our grasp, and that is what truly leads to success. The people we surround ourselves with shape us in ways we don't even realize. Our thoughts, our ambitions, our standards, they don't exist in isolation. They are built, reinforced, and sometimes limited by the company we keep. If you want to grow, if you want to become the best version of yourself, you must be intentional about who you allow into your world. Because whether you see it or not, they are shaping your future. Science backs this up. At MIT, researchers found that habits and behaviors are contagious, not just in an abstract way, but in a deeply personal and measurable way. If your friends exercise, you're more likely to work out. If they read, if they invest in their growth, if they chase big goals, those behaviors seep into you. And the opposite is also true. If you are surrounded by people who complain, who make excuses, who settle, then slow, almost imperceptibly, you will too. It's easy to underestimate the power of our environment because influence doesn't announce itself. It's subtle. It happens in small moments, the way your friends react to failure, the kind of conversations you have over dinner, the priorities they set in their own lives. Every interaction, every choice, every mindset you witness leaves an imprint. And those imprints over time define who you become. So take a moment and ask yourself, who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Do they challenge you? Do they push you to be better? Do they inspire you to think bigger, to dream without limits, to take action, or do they hold you back? Do they encourage complacency? Do they feed your doubts instead of your potential? If the answer isn't what you want it to be, then it's time to make a change. And that doesn't mean cutting people out of your life with cruelty. It means being intentional. It means seeking out mentors, joining communities that align with your aspirations, building friendships with people who elevate you. And if you don't have that circle yet, create it. Be the one who initiates. Be the person who sets a higher standard, who encourages growth, who fosters a space where ambition isn't something to be ashamed of, but something to be celebrated. This isn't just about success. It's about fulfillment. It's about surrounding yourself with people who bring out your courage, your resilience, your best self. People who remind you that you are capable of more than you believe. Because when you stand in the right circle, something incredible happens. You start seeing yourself differently. You start believing in possibilities that once felt out of reach. You start stepping into the life you were meant to live. So choose wisely, because in the end, we do not rise alone. We rise with those we walk beside. At the beginning of this speech, I asked you to imagine standing at the base of a mountain. That mountain represents your goals, your dreams, your full potential. You don't have to reach the summit today. You don't need to sprint to the top. All you need to do is take one step forward, just 1% better today than yesterday. Because in a year, 5 years, 10 years, you'll look back and realize that single step changed everything. Now, the only question that remains is this: what's the 1% improvement you'll make today?